It's just a question, first of all, as thanking all of you for coming, because if we didn't have you lot coming, it would be a very dull conference indeed. We'd be talking to ourselves, and it is terrific to see so many here. And although there is no hint of triumphalism in this, I'll just say that we have had 500 visitors per day, and what limits the number is actually the fire brigade. We don't want them coming around with their axes and telling you to clear off. And over the 2 days we've had 650, which means we are now bigger than the other conference up the road. So thank you all. All I'm going to say now is to introduce the four sort of people who had a big role in organising the 4 sessions, the 4 sort of strands, and the first is John Meadley, and we're very grateful, who organised the PFLA section on new farming. Very grateful to the PFLA for that, but will you come and talk for 2 minutes, John? 10 if you like.
I'm not talking to these. Thank you very much. Recently, I was at the memorial service of a spinster aunt, and I looked at the order of service, and as I sat down in the church, and I saw that the second item on the agenda was a tribute by John Meadley, and that was the first that I'd heard of it. And I thought, OMG, which I think is what clergymen say when they're surprised. So I sat with my wife and we thought of the idea. She was confidential secretary to British ambassadors in strange places. She had a 5-foot teddy bear in a chair in the living room. Every year she knitted us fingerless gloves. I've no idea what the purpose of those is. So anyway, I managed to put something together. So on Sunday, I was reading the ORFC program, and it said, John Meadley to chair the plenary session. So I thought, OMG. And then today, at lunchtime, I said, Russ, do you realize you're summarizing the Farmers' Day sessions? And he said, well, OMG, exactly the same. So just as I was coming up now, an hour ago, I heard someone walking out into the open air saying, I'm just going for a walk before coming to the plenary session when it will all come together. And I thought, OMG. So here we are, and we're winging it. There was a vicar, and I can say this because my father was a vicar, and the vicar was walking down the village, and he saw Johnny. He said, Johnny, you saying your prayers? And Johnny said, no. And he said, why not? He said, well, I prayed for a bike for a long time, and I never got one. And the vicar says, that's not how God works. And Johnny said, I know, so I nicked a bike and asked for forgiveness. I tell that story because I feel that farming is like that. And the boy knew how to work the system. At least he thought he knew how to work the system. And most farmers you talk to, you feel they know what they should be doing in relation to nature and the animals, but they have to work the system. It's an economic system, or to secure a single farm payment. So there are irrational pressures on farmers to So when we were asked to put together what we call the Farmers' Day session here, we felt we wanted to, with John Turner, wherever John is, we wanted to focus on good science. We felt that's very important. To work with nature, to recognize the importance of the bottom line, and to offer something practical to take home. And the feedback I've had, directly or indirectly, is that many of the farmers here have felt very comfortable in this hall, because our priority has been on information exchange and not on dogma. Let me quickly run through. Tuesday morning we had Elaine Ingham. Those of you who came, I'm sure, were bowled over. So many positive comments. Several farmers saying, I've really got to rethink my approach. I have never thought really seriously about what goes on under the ground. And you know, she went straight from here to Jersey. And I got an email last night from the people there saying Elaine was a knockout. And already they've got tests, they're talking about establishing test sites in Jersey to deal with the very real problems they have. And then, of course, tomorrow and Friday, we have the workshops. We've got 75 coming tomorrow and 25, not 30, on Friday, which is great. Then we had Kevin Ashford talking about the role of soil management in ending the weeds winning streak about repairing damaged soils. And there were two elements I found, two phrases. One, he said, soils are continually transferring nutrients from their saving account to their wallet. Oh, it was just a lovely idea, this constant transfer from the wallet to the roots to the plant. And then he said, when there's not enough food in the soil, you find the worms are bored. Now, isn't that a lovely concept of bored worms? After lunch, we looked at creating opportunity on your farm. How can you increase your income without increasing your acres, without stressing your land, stressing your plants, stressing your animals? So we looked at Fordhall Farm, 120 acres, employing 40 people. 170 acres of Chris Jones down in Cornwall, trebling its income through adding renewable energy and events. Julian Rose, timber, cider making. Then we talked about care farming and building your herd on other people's land. And then Tom Heap, who's one of the presenters of Countryfile, I was chatting with him, and he says, where do I find the guys who do mob grazing? I really like to do something on Countryfile on mob grazing. So if you see it, if you watch Countryfile, if you see it, then start it here. Then we had a final session on water on your farm. Some really amazing talks, and particularly about the judicious planting of trees. And the Pont Bren, do go and look at the website, Pont Bren. I think it's Welsh. But there, where they had tremendous floods, farmers got together and they planted trees along the streams. And in doing that, the infiltration rate, where they planted the trees, was 67 times the pasture where the sheep were. Not 67%, 67 times. And the runoff of the whole area was reduced by 40%. An extraordinary story. Then this morning we had 3 Nuffield scholars and successful dairy farmers on the stage to talk about different approaches to grassland management to produce milk. Robert Craig, Farmers Week Dairy Farmer of the Year. Isn't that wonderful that he was here with us and not down the road? He runs a highly efficient system based on ryegrass, clover, and bag nitrogen, but he's conscious that for every ton of nitrogen he uses, it requires 6 tons of carbon to produce that nitrogen. So he's really looking, and after hearing Elaine, he said, I realize how little we really know about what's going on under the surface. Then we had Rob Richmond talking about his herbal lays and mob grazing and building up the carbon in the soil. And the phrase for me was, farming is about feeding the soil and harvesting sunlight. Such a lovely phrase. Then we went on to look at kicking the grain habit, and we had 5 women on stage, chaired by Caroline Drummond, the chief executive of LEAF, who's one of the organizers of the other conference. Isn't that lovely that she was here chairing that session? We learned from Andrea that the total American demand for meat could be met by a 30% increase in productivity on the available grasslands. In other words, they could produce all the meat they need on the existing grasslands with just a 31% increase. Very encouraging. Then Carrie Balcom talked about the start of the American Grass-Fed Association, which has been hugely helpful to us in the development of the Pasture-Fed Livestock Association. She was she's a rancher herself, and she wrote a little video of a farmer who now has a $25 million turnover. He raises all his chickens outside, about 15,000 chickens, all outside, sheep, cattle, everything. And I loved his phrase. He says, nature likes being mixed up. I thought it was just a lovely phrase, this concept of we shouldn't be growing things monoculture. It likes to be mixed up. So we're grateful to them for crossing the pond to be here. And then Fidelity West told us about her pasture-fed farm, and Sarah Gregson, Sarah, thank you, introduced us to the PFLA's Pasture-Fed Livestock Association stunning new certification mark. Then this afternoon we had Professor Mark Eisler. I don't know if you're still here, Mark, but that was a stunning talk you gave us on the pros and cons of intensification, the role of livestock. And he was saying that 80% of the return from a dairy cow comes from 20% of the input. And 80% of the input, to get the extra 20%, you need another 80%. So we can reduce the yields a little and get a massive increase in efficiency. It was a very authoritative talk, and that's a characteristic, I think, of this, certainly what's been going on in this room where I've been. Then we've just finished with his bottled water worth more than milk. The price of water is higher than the price of milk, and the price is increasing faster than milk. We had feedback that 36% of people interviewed said that bottled water in the home is more convenient than tap water. So the big question we discussed was how to brand milk. Hugh had I'm being told I've got to shut up. Hugh said, talking about his microdairy, I prefer small cows to big ones. They're more efficient and do less damage. Another lovely thought, I thought. So we looked at marketing and economics. And so these sessions in this room were not about lobbying. They were about practical things involving farmers that farmers can take away to use on their farm with good science, authoritative, acknowledging the importance of the bottom line, and in tune with the biosphere. It's been great, and thank you very much to everybody involved.
Thank you very much, John. Actually, I don't think any of our conference is about lobbying. It's about identifying ideas that would lead us towards a better future. But that's a very, very minor quibble. A second speaker, terminal speaker, is Russ Carrington, also for the Pasture-Fed Livestock Association, who, of course, is going to talk about the young farmers, which he largely helped to organise. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Well, it's been an absolutely amazing conference, and last year I was lucky enough to go to the other conference. Somebody paid for me to have a ticket to go there, because I certainly wouldn't have been able to afford to go by myself. But I can't say that the contrast is so great between the two, and I've heard so many positive comments from people that I actually managed to drag over from the other conference earlier today for our Promoting Careers in Agriculture conference. And as they walked up the stairs and they heard the buzz of people meeting and congregating on the stairwell, and the welcome that they had from all the volunteers has just really set the scene so far apart from the others over the road. So well done to all of you who've helped create that brilliant atmosphere that we've got. As John said, I haven't had a great deal of planning gone into this either, so I've just had a quick run round the back of the room earlier just to get some odd words here and there, but incredible networking, mine of information, goodwill, spirit, energy, reinvigorating. It's been a fantastic couple of days, and I've been following the Twitter hashtag as well, whilst been in other sessions, not been able to do is try and be everywhere at the same time, but that's been great to follow the conversations on there. And then we were trending for the UK as one of the most talked about things in the country, which is brilliant. It's been really great for the Pasture-Fed Livestock Association. Somebody said to me, is this a Pasture-Fed Livestock Association conference or Oxford? And I said, no, we just happen to have a lot of members and pasture farmers here. So it's been really good for us, and we're very grateful to have the platform here with the Oxford Real Farming Conference, because it's really in tune with what we're doing, and it's great to be here and be a part of it. I'm just going to read some very rough notes, just from a young farmer's perspective, really, as I've gone through the last 2 days. I've met people from Ireland, America, Spain and France, struck up wonderful conversations and learnt about farming in their countries and some of the problems they're having. In the Soils, Stomachs and Livestock session, I heard from Richard Young that 1 gram of humus will hold 20 grams of water, and that if we had more humus in our soils, a lot of our problems would be solved. Tom Chapman on creating opportunities. build good relationships with arable farmers and help them to become mixed, sustainable farmers. The Fresh Start Land Enterprise initiative is creating a handbook for land partnerships, something that will be hugely useful for us to look at for advice. Born-again growers at Beacon Farms, this idea of people coming from other industries and they're born again into farming, which is another wonderful idea. I felt we've been so frank about where we are as well at this conference, rather than pretending that all in the world is good. We've been very honest and upfront about the reality of where we are and the problems that we face, and we're working with that. And I think that's another point of contrast, perhaps to over the road. We've got a new consumer now. They're asking more questions. They're reading labels. They want to know where it's from, how it was raised, and that's really exciting for all of us that believe and are passionate about the story behind our food. So we look forward to working with those new consumers. So that's really just a quick roundup, rough summary from me, but perhaps just one thought that stuck with me over the last 2 days. Anyone that knows John Meadley or is on his email list sometimes gets sent these lengthy emails, and sometimes he'll read a book, particularly over Christmas or on a journey somewhere, and he'll summarise the book for you, so it'll actually save you reading the book and send this summary round. And one he read over Christmas was about how Google works, written by, I think Google's founder Eric Schmidt. And one of the things that stuck with me from there is that Google said that this is the age of the platform and that the corporation is now dying. And I think that is for me, represents what's going on with these two conferences in Oxford, is that this is a platform, the other is a corporation that maybe has seen its day. So thank you very much.
Now we're going to hear from Joanne Mudar from Oak Tree Farm Low Carbon Farm, I beg its pardon, in Suffolk, who is going to reflect on the entire conference.
Thanks, Colin. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because I'm put down as being the person having organised the Digging Deep strand, and I didn't, and I apologise to the people who have organised it, because I did attend some of the sessions and they were excellent. But I can't claim the credit for them, so thank you for saying that. So what have been the highlights for me? I thought I'd discuss some of the highlights of the conference. And I know this sounds a bit negative, and it's a bit like I wrote a book review once and said it's a really good book to keep in the toilet. And the guy who actually wrote the book was actually quite flattered by this, because those are the most useful books. And so in some ways, the most useful part of this conference has been the breaks. I think many people would agree, because there are so many interesting people here to talk to. And we're not just talking about talking, new ideas are coming up all the time. And just as I was walking up, a farmer who has some land available and who's looking for a grower came up and said, "Where can I find a grower?" And I can't answer the question, but I can refer him to people who can help. And this is happening all the time. New things are happening. I found the soil carbon session yesterday really, really positive. Nobody was claiming to have all the answers to how we sequester and monitor soil carbon, but there's a lot of goodwill trying to share information and take it forward. One highlight for me was Jérôme Keller from Primata in France. I mean, it's great to have people coming across the channel to speak, because there's so much going on in France. I used to live there. And he gave me serious gadget envy by looking at the Cassine, which is a market gardening tool carrier pulled by draft animals. And I wanted one before, but now I really, really want one, because part of my farm, which is, as Colin says, in Suffolk, is a market garden. And, oof, yes, so that's some money going to be spent at some point. And then just watching two organisations which are really close to my heart, just growing hugely. The Land Workers Alliance. Last year I came along, I had joined the Land Workers Alliance, and I knew of them, and I walked into a relatively small meeting, and they were talking about some of the policy problems which have made my life hell trying to set up a small farm over the last 5 years in Suffolk. Things like the fact that we don't get any EU subsidies, but my competitors do, the fact that all the regulations make life difficult, the fact that planning rules make life virtually impossible. And they were talking about it, and they were talking about doing something about it, and I just burst into tears. I hadn't spoken to anybody else about it. And this year, watching the number of meetings going on with the Land Workers Alliance was just so touching. It's great. CSA Network UK, just the size of the meeting and the quality of the talks was just fantastic. You know, seeing fascinating projects from around the country thriving isn't necessarily a word because it's always very, very difficult financially. I know that. I run a CSA myself. But there's a lot of goodwill and there's a lot of effort going in and there's a determination to succeed, which is kind of like the mood for me of the whole conference. I came along to the Oxford Real Farming Conference for the first time 2 years ago. It was the first time I had a fellow grower, a fellow farmer on the farm, and I could leave the farm. And I felt like I was blinking and going into, I remember catching the bus into Oxford. It was extraordinary. I hadn't done anything like that for ages in a different town. And I remember going and seeing Colin speaking at the beginning, and it felt like the problems we were facing were really quite overwhelming, and the fact that there felt like there was an almost overwhelming establishment, for want of a better word, that just does not want the sort of changes that we know we need. And I felt insignificant. It felt to me like we were under siege. Perhaps that's because I hadn't been out much, but that's what it felt like. And we were talking about across the road, and they were the big guys. So to hear Colin say that we're bigger than them, sorry, I don't think we should be us and them. I think there should be dialogue, and I think we should become the mainstream, and the mainstream should adopt a lot of the approaches we're taking. So it felt a little bit like, I remember in the early days at the oak tree, I would be harvesting potatoes with a fork. And I'm in East Anglia, and East Anglia, as you probably know, is the heart of industrial agriculture. And this great big potato harvester, like a massive great thing, went past on the next field. And I was all on my own, and it was just a really strange feeling. I felt so small, and I thought, what am I doing here, really? And then last summer, we were harvesting potatoes with our little two-wheel tractor. I haven't got the Cassine yet, I still want it, with a potato lifter that one of our CSA members bought us because we didn't have enough money to buy it, so she just bought it for us. I mean, isn't that lovely? And we had a Guardian journalist there, and you think people are starting to take an interest in what we're doing. And it feels, I remember Colin talking about the Renaissance. I'm sure Colin still talks about the Renaissance. And he talks about a renaissance, not a revolution. And I think that's genuinely happening. I will dare to slightly disagree with Colin, and I think we do need an element of revolution, because we need some genuine changes in we need to lobby for genuine changes in policy. Perhaps I've misunderstood you, Colin, what you mean by renaissance. It does feel rather brave to challenge the great man. So what can we do? What can we take away from the conference? I mean, yes, it's been a fantastic 2 days, but it's what happens from here that matters. And I have a little laminated sheet, which is a message. I bravely wrote to Tim Lang in the early days of the Oak Tree, who didn't know me from Adam. But he was gracious enough to write back and just said, keep going, keep doing what you're doing. And I laminated this email, and I put it up on my inadequate shelter at the farm, because the planning rules are so bad, I get cold and wet almost all the time. It said, keep going. What you're doing is important. And when I get cold and wet, I look at that and I think, yeah, so keep going, everybody, keep going. What you're doing is important. Keep producing good food for people who will appreciate it. Take care of the environment. People will notice. Keep learning what we need to do I don't think any of us would claim to have all the answers. Maybe if somebody does have them, please come and talk to me afterwards. Keep learning, because a lot of this is practical stuff we learn as we're going along, and relearning old skills. And keep talking to people, everyday people. I'm constantly talking to our members about some of the issues we're facing, and they're really shocked to hear about things like the fact that, dare I name a particular organisation, Tate and Lyle get £9 million worth of EU subsidies each year, and yet we've got kids getting diabetes, and Jamie Oliver was recently saying that we should be taxing sugar. Well, let's start by not subsidising sugar, and I'm sure there are other people producing sugar, which is going to be one of the campaigns of the Land Workers Alliance next year. If you haven't joined yet, please join. Membership is available on our website, and keep lobbying and keep going, because I think the renaissance, the revolution, however we're going to call it, is underway now. It's definitely underway. The change in atmosphere here since 2 years ago is palpable, and it's very exciting. So thank you very much.
Before I introduce our last speaker, I've got a note from John Meadley, and I'll read it now because I don't want to forget, which is that everyone who wants to go to the soil workshop tomorrow should be at Somerville College no later than 8:45, which I think is 8:45, isn't it? That's right. Yeah, 8:45. Our last speaker is Jyoti Fernandez. I don't suppose you pronounce it like that, but that's how I say it. Of the Land Workers Alliance, who was very much responsible for the new generation. Please, Jyoti.
I'll stand here because I'll get covered up over there. Is Robin Gray here by any chance? Can you come and sing afterwards for us? I really believe in singing and building together a community that's built around food and a movement together. So I'll just do a little speak, and then I wondered if we might be able to just sing a song together. I really like the John Ball song you said would be the song of the new revolution. Huh? Okay, yep, okay. So anyway, thanks to all our speakers that came to the Land Workers Alliance session. That's the first thing I had to start with, have it written down, but I really genuinely mean it. And yeah, this conference, I came a few years ago, and I really feel the energy has definitely increased, just like everyone else who's spoken here. And that's a really good sign to me, because we sort of jumped in and started to build the Land Workers Alliance. And one of our first sessions, somebody said, where does your power seem to come from? Or where do you feel power might come from for such a small organization as yours? And I thought, well, really, it's just because we're jumping in there and we're shouting about the elephant in the room that people haven't been talking about, but people have been talking about for a long time. And all of a sudden, it seems to have just grown and hit this point where so many people are talking about it that it's built itself into a movement. And we are a food movement now. And being a food movement, we need to harness the energy that we've all got and that we've been creating through this Oxford Farming Conference, all the actions we've been doing, all the little actions we've been doing throughout the year, all the people coming to our farms and everything, to be able to build it into something that's really going to start to not just tackle the agricultural establishment, but start to build all of it into one big movement together so that we can really rescue our food system and look at our whole planet and the way we live together as one big movement that's really going to tackle social change in this direct and immediate way, where we talk to each other, we love each other, we work together, we build a whole movement for social change based on food and the little things that we do every single day and the way we love each other and just work together. So, a little example. Yeah, we'll keep saying that sort of same thing all over and over. But a little example of the wonderful cross-fertilization of ideas that seems to have gone on here that I hadn't seen happening within the food movement, to me is a little bit symbolic. In our last session, we've been getting, the first day we spent on policy issues. Yes, there is lobbying and policy issues going on here, and it's been in the Land Workers Alliance branch the entire time, and I've heard it in the halls and all over the place. So we spent the first day talking about our policy pamphlet and going through these nuts and bolts, quite boring issues like the Common Agricultural Policy. Oh my God, it just, I had a headache after the end of some of these things. I don't really want to do any of this, really, but we kind of have to. We have to get engaged and get a bit of energy back from hearing about all these things, looking at all the DEFRA's policies, trying to get people to get engaged with these incredibly boring things so that we don't get left out of the picture all the time. So we spent the first day just trying to get people engaged with all of that as the Land Workers Alliance, and that was quite successful. On the second day, we brought in the Young Farmers association, young farmers clubs, to come in, work with the Land Workers Alliance to try and bring a new generation into farming. And quite a few people came over from the Oxford Farming Conference to join in. And on one of the panels, we've had mostly farmers. 21 of the different speakers on the Land Workers Alliance panels are all active farmers. One speaker was a lady from Rothamsted Research Centre, which is really interesting because a lot of us over the last year have had a few issues with Rothamsted Research Centre, and she was a lovely, engaging woman talking about people coming to getting young people to go into careers in farming by getting them to come to Rothamsted Research Centre, which many of us have a lot of respect for a lot of the work that they do, but they've had issues with doing GM trials, and there's a lot of dichotomy around that issue. So we had a lot of, a good conversation in the hallway after that, and, really starting to build bridges between these different aspects of people working in food and farming. She gave me her card and invited us to come and visit, both Gerald and I, who are both quite active in the anti-GM movement. And we said, well, unfortunately, we can't come and visit you because we've both got an injunction on us prohibiting us from talking about GM or coming to the research center. She said, don't worry about that. We'll sort that out. So we're building bridges all the time, and together, if all of us, including the people that we sort of see as a dichotomy, see these kind of things. We got George Monbiot in for a big debate, and, it might be seen as anti-farmer or not, but really the idea is that we have these ideas picking at us all the time, and we build bridges with all of the people involved in the things that they are doing in the world. Some might be misguided, some might not, and we can all talk about these, and we can build them up together, because in the heart of us, I believe, all of us as human beings genuinely want to build something that's better for their family and for their future and for the planet, and to really love each other and build a network and a sense of community. And we all have to try and communicate with the people sometimes that we don't always think are on our side or not, to build these bridges. And that's what this conference has been doing, and I've been feeling it, and it's lovely. And I appreciate every single one of you making the effort to be doing that over the last few days. A couple of little bits of feedback that I've got about things that could be better about the conference have been people coming that are new into farming or that are getting started on their bits of land, wanting a bit more practical stuff, workshops. And I know there's been quite a lot about how you set up a good business plan for your farm and things, and it's on different levels of the farming spectrum. But maybe a bit more of that, where they're kind of wanting more workshops where it tells you how to make such and such machine, or how do you weld this, or how do you set up a milking parlor, or how do you get around environmental health regulations to make cheese, or just bits and bobs like that. And the Land Workers Alliance is looking at that. That's not necessarily all of what this conference could be about, because it's quite a broad spectrum of things. But we'd like to see more of those kind of practical workshops to help scratch that itch for those people who are really dying to get into it, and they just want to know how to get on with it so that they can get their bit of land and start doing stuff. So we want to invite people to a farm hack event which is going to be very practically based on the 18th of April at Ruskin Mill. The other thing, which is going to be loads of people, loads of practical workshops. We've got welders, we've got builders, we've got people making all kinds of bits, kit to teach people how to do that. Secondly, the other feedback I've got from people is that some of the sessions, it felt like we needed to be a bit more solutions focused, to try and actually practically build up a strategy between all the different people working on so many different levels to really tackle needing to change the food system. And the Land Workers Alliance has really been trying to do that, and we want to try and help spearhead some of the workshops over the next year at the farming conference to try and do more kind of workshop-based building an action plan as the whole food movement together, where we have sessions where we're just actually building a strategy and coming up with a plan that we can work towards on all the different levels, because there's such a diversity of people working on so many different levels together. That work has been started with a policy pamphlet. We want to take that further. So really, it's kind of thinking about how we can take all this, bring it into action, really make it happen, build on the movement that we've got started, and build this revolution that we all want to see. So yeah, let's take it forward in a really practical way next year. And let's all sing together. That's a start. Yeah, so we'll do that as well. Thank you.
Before you all escape, there are people we have to thank. And the people who are top of the list, we really must thank more than anybody else, is or are the Sheep Drove Trust. As people have commented, the first year we met in a very nice library over in the few yards from here. About 80 of us, and it was a very nice afternoon, and it snowed and snowed and snowed, went on snowing. And, but that's as far as we would have got had it not been for the intervention of Peter and Juliet Kindersley at the Sheep Drove Trust, who have been supporting us every year since, steadily increasing amounts. And I think it's rather wonderful, and that's why we're now in this Venetian palace. I think it's Venetian, or something like that. Anyway, that's why we're now here, and we've come as far as we have. So thank you very much, Sheep Drove. I also want to thank all the speakers. And there are about 100 of them. I mean, you know, about 1 in 6 people in this room is a speaker. I think that's rather wonderful. Also, particular thanks to John Meadley and John Turner of the Pasture-Fed Livestock Association, who, of course, ran, chaired, organised the farming outside the box section, which kind of is, you know, the core farming section. That's absolutely necessary. And other members of the Pasture-Fed Livestock Association. Then also to Ollie Rodka and Ed Hamer of the Land Workers Alliance. Am I right about the Land Workers Alliance? Oh, it's written down here. The Land Workers Alliance, who organised the New Generation, New Ideas. Thank you very much, you chaps. Our caterers, I thought, were magnificent. All of them, we saw them last night in action and at lunchtime, all of them are members of Good Food Oxford. I didn't know there was an organisation called Good Food Oxford until this year, but I'm very glad that they exist, and, you know, whatever it is, strength to their arm. Thank you very much. We are very grateful for Hornton Grounds Farm, Catherine and Graham Vint at Banbury for supplying the cattle, I mean the beef that we had yesterday, and to Sheep Drove yet again, Organics Farm, for the lamb. Thank you very much to you too. And not last, but we're getting to the end, the team that put together this conference, an incredibly hard task, takes several months of graft, and they are Hannah Fenton, Harry Greenfield, James Farndon, Chris Church, and Jade Neville. Marvellous team. We also have other supporters, Compassion in World Farming, City AV, where AV stands for Audio Visual, the Soil Association, and Triodos, the ethical bank, as they tell us. No, they are. I mean, they're very, very good. I've just said that that's what they call themselves, and that's what they are. So thank you very much to all of you. And finally, or almost finally, the Oxford City Council, who have been very supportive and hospitable and helped us a lot. And I love the introduction at the beginning, if you heard it in the opening plenary, from Bob Price, who could not have said better things. So thank you very much, Oxford City Council, and we hope to be working with you more in the future. Not quite finally, but almost, I would like to thank Ruth West, to whom I imagine. It really is her energy and drive right from the outset that has made this work over the last 6 years as a kind of purely sort of voluntary pursuit. I could never have done it, so brilliant, thank you. Lastly, I think we're lastly now. Oh, almost lastly, thank all of you for coming yet again. But last of all, I'd like to ask Hannah, one of our workers, to introduce the volunteers, because without the volunteers, we'd be in real trouble.
Wow, there's a lot of people. Whew. So I just want to say an extra special, huge thanks to the team, and especially the volunteers. Each of them are uniquely talented, and they've used their unique talents over these past couple of days. It's been amazing. They've had complex tasks to do. They've each had individual unique tasks, and they've each done a fantastic job, and I'm hugely grateful to them, and we really wouldn't have had such an amazingly smooth running conference without them. They've been fantastic. So would you give them a round of applause? I'd love them to come up onto the stage, and the whole team. And Robin. The whole team, just come up as well, please. Come on. Aww. Over there. Yeah.
Where's Harry and Jack?
Where's Harry? And thank you. And while Robin teaches you all a song, we're going to have a... Well, if anyone would like to take a photo, that'd be fantastic.
Before we close, I just want to say thank you to the one volunteer who hasn't been mentioned, which is Colin.
Can we have all of the team on for the photo? We're missing Harry, I think.
So this is live. So everybody here is very, very aware that eating good quality food is good for your health. Another thing I'm sure you'll agree with is the health-giving properties of all singing together. And I can't remember who it was who said, if I'm not interested in the revolution unless there's singing and dancing. There's been some very good singing and dancing last night. I think we've got time to go out with a song. The song I'm going to teach you is a song about equality. It's about John Ball, who was the leader of the Peasants' Revolt in 1381, and it was written by Sydney Carter. And you all know Sydney Carter's songs. He wrote, "Dance then, wherever you may be," but along with lots of others. And I just wanted to frame it by another quote I read recently, which is, "The opposite of inequality isn't equality, it's community." And I thought that was really beautiful, because a lot of the time when we're talking about trying to have a fair and more equal society, people get this idea of kind of identikit individuals, but when we're all together, we're a community. So this is not a peer pressure moment. Nobody's going to point fingers if you don't join in. Many people learnt this song last night. I'll sing a line of the chorus, and you sing it back to me, and hopefully we'll ride off into the sunset on horseback. Sing John Ball and tell it to them all. Sing John Ball and tell it to them all. Long be the day that is dawning. Long be the day that is dawning. I'll crow like a cock, I'll carol like a lark. For the light that's coming in the morning. For the light that's coming in the morning. Who'll be the lady, who will be the Lord, when we are met in the love of one another? Who'll be the lady, who will be the Lord, in the light that's coming in the morning? Sing John Bull and tell it to them all. Long be the day that is dawning. I'll crow like a cock, I'll carol like a lark for the light that's coming in the morning. Eve is the lady, Adam is the Lord. When we are met in the love of one another, Eve is the lady, Adam is the Lord, in the light that's coming in the morning. Sing John Bull and tell it to them all. Long be the day that is dawning. I'll crow like a cock, I'll carol like a lark for the light that's coming in the morning. All shall be met in the fellowship, I say. All shall be met in the love of one another. All shall be met in the fellowship, I say, in the light that's coming in the morning. Sing John Bull and tell it to them all. Long be the day that is dawning. I'll crow like a cock, I'll carol like a lark for the light that's coming in the morning. Labor and spin for the fellowship, I say. Labor and spin for the love of one another. Labor and spin for the fellowship, I say, and the light that's coming in the morning. Sing John Bull and tell it to them all. Long be the day that is dawning. I'll crow like a cock, I'll carol like a lark for the light that's coming in the morning. Go safely home, people.